Hi there, Plush here. Happy Pride Month.
Frank!
In celebration as such, I'm taking this video to talk about my own sexuality and gender, along with the journey it has taken for me to reach where I am today. Not everything mentioned is going to be appropriate for all ages, unfortunately. Some of what I mention won't exactly be happy either. A bit of trauma dumping will happen. So if you are underage or are access sensitive to topics of depression, anxiety, or similar, feel free to skip this video for now and enjoy your day. To get this out of the way, I am asexual and I'm still currently trying to figure out what my romantic attraction is. I am somewhere in the ballpark of either being pan-romantic or aromantic, or even maybe demi-romantic, but I'll explain why later on, why I don't fully know. Likewise, I don't see myself as a guy. I sort of fluctuate between seeing myself as a girl or just kind of genderless, which in itself has confused me into wondering if I count as trans or if I just am some sort of gender fluid or a gender person, which is a bit confusing at times. So, how did I get to this point? Well, to start off, back in middle school and early high school, I didn't really think much about either sexuality or gender. I was just sort of that kid who just assumed that things like sexuality would come with time. Even as others around me began getting into relationships and getting horny at all the goddamn time, I felt no particular draw for anyone or for anything in that way. As high school came about, I was beginning to get pressure from parents and, like others in school, to get a girlfriend. I still had no real sexual desire at the time and assumed that the hormone punch was just late, and that becoming a horny teen would happen eventually. I just sort of assumed I was straight and asked out my current girlfriend, Fluffy, to one of our freshman school dances because of that peer pressure. In hindsight, it's kind of wild how well me and her click even to this day, but we did have some turbulent times, but that's later in the story. Throughout high school, I just kept waiting, anticipating that boom of hormones and horniness that every guy supposedly gets in puberty. Once we got into late high school, I even tried to bring it out by trying out things boys are supposedly do, like masturbate and look at porn. But porn didn't really appeal to me in any way at all. I just couldn't watch it. Got grossed out by a lot of it. And masturbation, while feeling good in the moment, always left me exhausted and not feeling great right after. Sometimes even feeling sick to my stomach immediately after instead of any sort of like pleasant afterglow or such. By the tail end of the senior year, I began to wonder why this like universally accepted boom of hormones that everyone supposedly gets hadn't yet happened. By this point, I also tinkered with another thing on the side. Online hypnosis as a sort of an attempt to make that horniness come out more. Plus it kind of became a little bit of fixation. And while it didn't ever get me going, I did get plenty of amusement and joy from hypnosis, from files and such where basically the hypnosis session would allow you to see yourself as something other than your regular self. This led into me experimenting a bit with the idea of being something other than human, which was a concept that I had enjoyed before in things such as the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. This led to me to dipping my toes into other things such as the furry fandom. This will be important later. I graduated high school and started my first year of college in 2016. If you know anything about that year, you know it was wild on all fronts. What's relevant to this story though is that I began to toy with the idea that I might not be entirely straight about that time. After all, that boom of desire for any singular person sexually still hadn't really appeared. The LGBT community at the time in my area and online weren't exactly great, at least in the online spaces I was in. I didn't have Tumblr at the time, but this was during the era of the all or nothing scam. If you want to know more about that, I'll link a video in the description. A lot of distrust and hate was pushed onto the asexual and pansexual communities in specific because of this scam, and tons of misinformation spread throughout the LGBT and beyond when it comes to these sexualities. The misinfo that I learned at the time led me to believe that asexuality meant no love for anyone at all, which is actually sociopathy, and that pansexuality meant love for everyone without exception, which would include, like, awful people. I also at the time didn't know that love and sexual desire were not considered the same thing, which, yeah, I was a bit dumb. Because of this, despite having no sexual desire or preference, I began to believe I was somewhere between bisexual and pansexual. That persisted throughout the school year, and the reason why I thought I was either of these is because, well, I don't have a desire for guys, I don't have a desire for girls, so that means they're even, right? No, that's not how it works. On a more positive note, I really began to test myself with gender around this time. My first Sona, Plush, actually first came around at this time. Originally, before Plush came around, I had a wolf Sona that I barely connected to at all. It was just, my name, wolf, and similar colors to what Plush had. But then, I discovered the species known as Dutch Angel Dragons. I don't think I could even properly describe how hard I related to the species when I first found them. From the fact that the species officially is all asexual, to the lack of any genitalia, meaning just a null nothing below, making the species as a whole genderless, to just how soft and squishy I imagined them to be, everything just clicked in ways I had never felt so intensely before, at least before that point. And thus, this Sona of me was born, with some differences since then. And the funny thing is, despite the fact I didn't really want to see myself as a girl due to trans stigma at the time, I fully identified with something that was fully not male, which in turn loosened me up to the idea of not being a guy. Did I mention this was during a period of high anti-trans sentiment? Guess not much has changed in the last, 7 years? I'm old. God dang it. Unfortunately, something else was bubbling and brewing under the surface at this time for me. I was becoming depressed. Stressing so much over little things and big things alike. Not being sure of my own sexuality and coping with the idea of not being cis just added to that stress. And by the end of the school year in mid-2017, I began to crack in some of the worst ways. That summer, I lived in an apartment near the college while working at the same time. And boy, did depression and who knows what else hit hard. I'd go to work, go home, and be able to do anything basically most days that entire, time. Some days I'd just get home, curl up in the middle of the floor, and just cry for a few hours. And then just lay there until I got up to go to bed. There was a lot on me at the time, but with sexuality, I really began to beat myself up over Fluffy. I began to question why I felt no sexual feelings for her still, and began to believe that I was not right for her. We were chill together, but I felt bad about being her boyfriend. After all, what boyfriend am I if I don't feel any strong desire for her? This was a line of thinking that paired with my conflicted feelings on my gender. After all, by this point, I knew I didn't exactly see myself as a guy. So being a boyfriend, quote-unquote, just felt wrong on so many levels. Not that I solidly could say I identified as female, that's something that I still struggle with to this day, to be honest. It led me to actively telling her at one point that I didn't believe I was the right one for her, and essentially self-sabotaged the relationship by trying to break the, boyfriend and girlfriend thing. God, I'm an idiot. I definitely was at the Luckily, a combo of a couple of online friends and my parents helped me dig myself out of the hole that I was digging myself into at the time. But that depression never fully left, and to this day I do my best to fight it, but it still sort of resurfaces. At least nowadays I fight off any self-sabotage that I feel from it. I think I was in this hell, though, Until like late 2018 or early 2019 when I finally got the right info on what asexuality actually is. It took a while to really accept that I'm ace, but it began to feel better on multiple levels once I figured it out. Because, you know, it actually fit more properly. As for romantic attraction, I'm still attempting to find the line between romantic love and platonic love. But I'll figure out that line one day. Hopefully. Gender, meanwhile, still is a strange topic for me. I don't always see myself as trans, but I've heard people say that being non-binary or agender is part of the trans umbrella. But in my mind, I thought that being trans was specifically for people who are male to female or female to male, specifically. It doesn't help that I live in a very conservative area. I don't have a family that's very progressive. A lot of my family is very conservative, in fact. Not only that, doctors in my area are complete trash. Trans care in my area is non-existent, basically, unless I go full county over. It sucks because even if I made the choice to go male to female, I'd have no place to do so that isn't like anywhere in the nearby area. I would lose family if I did, and I'd be an outcast in my area. And I'm sure this is all big parts of why I don't even want to see myself as a girl in the first place. Not to mention also a more recent thing with one of my doctors where I was told to my face, unironically, without any medical reason, by my doctor that they liked me as a guy. Just personal preference, which is weird and creepy. I don't know how she's still allowed to be a doctor. Overall, voice crack. Overall, I'm kind of stagnant when it comes to figuring out things like my romantic attraction or figuring out my gender. All I've done really is solidify my stance of being an ace. That's really it ever since maybe 2018. At least me and Fluffy's relationship has gone much smoother since that incident. Turns out she's Arrow Ace. Who knew? Might be why we've always clicked very well together. I apologize for this sort of, not entirely happy story, but Pride Month is important, and a big reason I want to share this story is that I don't want others who are asexual to go through some of the same confusion and hardships that I've gone through. The ace community is a lot more accepted now, but I still see people who don't get it or accuse asexuals of very genuinely awful stuff, including actual crimes such as pedophilia and zoophilia, simply just because the people who are making the accusations can't grasp the concept that someone just might not want to have sex with anyone. It's gotta be a lie, they're clearly hiding something. God. We as a community should be proving these people wrong, give the proper facts, and not let these rampant lies, misinformation, and hate just run like they do. This is how we end up with things like the LGB without TQ thing that we have seen in recent years. Cause, hot take, I don't think that those people are just straight people that are faking. Some of them might be. But I do think some of it is genuinely people within the LGBT who have such misinformation that they move to hate for other parts of the community that they don't understand. But without rambling too much, I could probably ramble on so much more. I'm going to just kind of end it here. Hopefully my tale of hardship helps someone out there, because again, I don't want the same to happen to someone else who's ace. I hope that they can discover themselves. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Hi there, Plush here. Happy Valentine's... frack. Edit out section in case it's not actually Pride Month anymore. In celebration of such, I'm taking this of depression, anxiety, or and while it didn't ever really get me going, it did get plenty of it. I did get plenty, and right. I also didn't know that love and sex does. Okay, no, I didn't repeat that. At least nowadays, I fight off any trans care in my area is basically non-existent unless might be why we've already. It might be why we've always quit very. The ace voice crack. Jesus Christ. We as a community should be providing. We as a community should be proving these people wrong, give the proper facts to them, and not let these rampant lies. We as a community should. God, I am really falling apart towards the end of this script. We as a community should not. Frack. We as a community should be providing these. Why do I keep saying providing? God dang it. We as a community should be proving these people wrong, giving the proper facts, and not letting these rampant lies, why can't I say misinformation properly? God dang it. Taking a second.